Did you know that the way you love as an adult was largely shaped before you even turned 10 years old? That might sound hard to believe, but childhood trauma, even the kind that doesn't look like trauma on the surface, quietly rewires your brain's attachment system. And once that wiring is in place, it runs silently in the background of every relationship you enter. Research in clinical psychology and neuroscience suggests that our earliest childhood experiences create a template, a blueprint for how we give and receive love as adults. If your childhood was stable and secure, that blueprint helps you build strong, healthy relationships. But if you experienced childhood trauma, whether it was neglect, emotional unavailability, or overt abuse, that blueprint becomes a maze. You might find yourself constantly running into the same walls, confused about why love feels so difficult. Today's video focuses on 11 specific signs that your childhood memories and past wounds are silently shaping your love style. If you've ever wondered why you attract the same type of person or why you react so strongly to certain situations, this video might just provide the answers you've been looking for. Let's get into the signs, beginning with sign number 1. You confuse anxiety with love. You may not even realize you do this, but for many people healing from childhood trauma, love feels exciting only when it also feels a little dangerous. If your early caregivers were inconsistent, present one moment, cold or absent the next, your brain learned to associate love with uncertainty. So calm, steady love can actually feel boring to you. But someone who keeps you guessing, that feels like passion. Research suggests this is rooted in your attachment style. The nervous system that once anxiously waited for a parent's approval now reenacts that same pattern in romantic relationships. You chase, you overgive, and when they pull back, your body floods with adrenaline, which you mistake for chemistry. This is because your inner child is still searching for the love it never consistently received. Recognizing this pattern is the first step towards breaking it. Sign number 2, you fear abandonment even when there's no real threat. If someone takes too long to reply to your message and your mind instantly spirals into worst-case scenarios, your childhood memories might be speaking louder than your reality. People with early trauma often develop what psychologists call hyper-vigilance in relationships. You scan for signs of rejection. You overanalyze tone, body language, and silence. Even small moments of distance feel like warnings of something much bigger. According to experts, this response is neurological. The amygdala, the brain's fear center, has been conditioned to treat emotional distance as danger. It learned that early on when someone leaving was actually dangerous. The Stoics had a concept for this, separating what is up to us from what is not. Most of what we fear in love has not happened yet. Practicing that distinction can slowly calm an overactive threat response. Sign number 3, you struggle to ask for what you need. Building on the last point, many people with unhealed wounds simply cannot articulate their needs in a relationship. They expect their partner to be a mind reader. When the partner inevitably fails, they feel hurt and resentful. Why does this happen? Because in their childhood, asking for something was either ignored, punished, or met with anger. They learned it was unsafe to have needs. Neuroscience tells us that these neural pathways become deeply ingrained. So instead of saying, "I need more quality time with you," they shut down and think, if they really loved me, they would just know.
Sign number 4, you either over-communicate or completely shut down. In conflict, do you find yourself either flooding your partner with emotions or going completely silent and emotionally unavailable? Both extremes are trauma responses. The first is called emotional flooding. The second is called dissociation or stonewalling. And both come from a nervous system that was never taught how to regulate itself safely in the presence of conflict. Research suggests that children who grew up in homes with unresolved conflict either learned to fight loudly to be heard or learned that silence was the only safe option. Neither strategy works well in adult relationships. Neuroscience calls this a dysregulated nervous system. The good news? It can be retrained through consistent, safe emotional experiences and practices like breath work, therapy, and mindfulness. Sign number 5. You are hyper-independent. Society often praises independence, but hyper-independence is different. It's the belief that you can and must do everything alone. You refuse help even when you're drowning. You bristle at the idea of relying on a partner. This is often a wall built brick by brick during a painful childhood. If you learned early on that no one was coming to save you, you decided to become your own hero. While this makes you resilient, it also prevents true partnership. Intimacy requires interdependence, a healthy back and forth of giving and receiving. If you can't receive, you can't truly connect. Sign number 6. You tend to attract emotionally unavailable people. If you look back at your relationship history and notice a pattern, partners who were distant, non-committal, or unable to go deep, that pattern almost certainly has roots in your childhood trauma. This is not a coincidence, and it is not your fault, but it is worth examining. According to experts in attachment theory, we unconsciously seek out what feels familiar. If a parent was emotionally unavailable, that emotional distance became your brain's definition of love. So when someone is warm, open, and stable, it feels unfamiliar, even unsettling. But someone who mirrors that early emotional distance, that feels like home. Shadow work, the practice of examining the parts of yourself you've buried, can help you identify why unavailability feels so magnetic and begin to change that attraction. Sign number 7. You people please at the expense of your own needs. Were you the child who kept the peace, who made sure not to take up too much space, who learned early that being good was how you stayed safe or kept love? People-pleasing in adult relationships is often a survival strategy carried over from childhood. If love in your home felt conditional on your behavior, on being agreeable, helpful, invisible, you learned to suppress your needs to maintain connection. Clinical psychology identifies this as a Fawn response to trauma. You agree when you want to say no. You minimize your feelings. You apologize for things that aren't your fault. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote about acting in accordance with your true nature. People-pleasing is the opposite of that. Real intimacy requires you to show up as yourself, not as a performance.
Sign number 8. You are highly perceptive of others' moods. Are you the one who always knows when something is wrong? Can you walk into a room and instantly feel the tension? If you grew up in an unpredictable environment, you likely developed this hyper-vigilance as a survival tool. You had to monitor the mood of the adults around you to stay safe. In your adult relationships, this makes you an incredibly sensitive partner, but it also means you are constantly scanning for threats. You might overanalyze your partner's tone of voice or interpret a neutral face as anger. You aren't just loving them, you are managing them, and that is exhausting. Sign number 9. You struggle with emotional intimacy. You can talk about everything, goals, humor, ideas, but the moment a conversation turns to real vulnerability, something in you pulls back. Emotional intimacy requires safety, and if your early attachment figures were the very people who hurt you or let you down, then emotional closeness became something to guard against rather than seek out. Studies show that unresolved childhood trauma can result in what is called intimacy avoidance, not because you don't want closeness, but because deep down, part of you believes that being truly known means being truly rejected. True intimacy is not a risk, it is a necessity. But getting there requires slowly, intentionally, allowing yourself to be seen. Sign number 11. You don't know who you are outside of a relationship. Do you lose yourself in relationships? Do your opinions, interests, and moods shift to match whoever you're with? Do you feel empty or purposeless when you're alone? This is often the deepest mark that childhood trauma leaves. When a child's sense of self is never mirrored, validated, or encouraged, they grow up with a fragile or undefined identity. And without a strong sense of self, relationships become the source of identity, which gives another person enormous power over your emotional world. Neuroscience tells us that identity is built through reflection and repetition. You can build it now. Journaling, therapy, solitude, and reconnecting with your earliest genuine interests before you started performing for others are all powerful places to begin. Sign number 11. You have a deep fear of being truly known. The final sign is perhaps the most painful. On the surface, you want love, you crave connection, but deep down, you are terrified of it. If someone gets too close, if they start to see the real you, the scared, flawed, wounded you, you panic. You believe that if they truly knew you, they would leave, so you keep them at arm's length. You reveal just enough to be interesting, but not enough to be rejected. This is the inner child's final line of defense, whispering that vulnerability leads to pain. Closing. If any of these signs resonated with you, know this: recognizing the pattern is not the same as being trapped by it. Childhood trauma shapes you, but it does not define your future relationships. Childhood trauma can have a profound impact on our adult relationships, but the good news is that it's possible to break these patterns. Through self-reflection, therapy, and practices like shadow work and inner child healing, we can learn to reclaim our power and create the fulfilling connections we deserve. So take a moment to reflect. Which of these signs do you see in yourself? And what's the first step you can take towards healing? Let us know in the comments below. For more videos on personal growth and relationship psychology, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like, and share.